Hello students, welcome everyone to Manu Law Classes. In today's class, we are going to discuss about para-based CR questions. Okay, how we will not actually discuss the questions here. We will actually discuss about the strategy and the framework which a candidate should keep in mind before starting to solve para-based critical reasoning questions for especially for CLAT and other law entrances examination. Okay, this is Ratnakar sir, your mentor for quants and reasoning section. And if you have not subscribed our channel, there is a subscribe button just below this video. Do click it, subscribe it, and click the bell notifications so that you get all the notifications on time. Okay. So let's start. Let's start today's class. Before starting, we like to say our admissions are now open for a 1-year course and 2-year course. For details, you can chat with us at our website, namely www.lawintranceindia.com, lawintranceindia.com, or you can call us at this number 9971444054. Okay. To add more to it, the CLAT notification for the year 2022 has released. The online form fill up is going on. The online form fill up is going from 1st January and it will continue up to 31st March. And it will continue up to 31st March. So all the candidates who are going to apply for this CLAT exam, they should definitely apply them to the online portal between these dates, and the exam is scheduled to be held on 8th May. So until and unless some sort of notification or some sort of news we get, we will still hold that this is our exam date, 8th May 2020. 2022. Okay. So let's start today's class. Let's start today's class. What they are saying that the logical reasoning subject, if we see it, that is broadly divided into two types. Okay. One is critical reasoning. And other part is logical reasoning, logical thinking, or you can say analytical reasoning. Now, initially there were 4 to 5 main topics from where the questions were asked. If I am to name those topics, I would name them as statement, and assumptions, statement and assumptions, statement and conclusions, statement and conclusions, statement and course of action, statement and arguments, and to add more, statement and decision making. Okay. So these 4 or 5 topics were main. In some books or in some text, this is written as inference. Okay. So if you see CLAT 2020 and 2021 paper, you will see that CLAT has shifted its focus mainly towards this critical based reasoning questions. That means around 28 to 32 questions that will be asked in your exam, almost 12 to 15 questions will be asked from this topic alone. Okay. This is expected. This number can be 5 questions more, 5 questions less. It should not be less, it should be more. Okay. So you can expect around 20 questions are going to be asked from this critical reasoning section alone. And therefore, to perform well in this section becomes a crucial part of your overall preparation. Okay. So in today's class, we are going to discuss how to ace, what are the important points that we should remember before going to critical reasoning part. Okay. So what are basically the critical reasoning questions in CLAT? Okay. The questions which include argument, that means strong argument, weak argument, which include assumptions, or you can say inferences, and identifying the assumption, that means the sort of assumption is a weak assumption or a strong assumption, evaluating those arguments, assumptions, and deriving a conclusion. From those, these type of questions are categorized under critical reasoning part. Okay. So if you see, the logical reasoning is divided into two parts: critical reasoning and analytical reasoning. From analytical reasoning, the topics are like blood relation, coding, decoding, number series, blood relation, coding, decoding, number series, and you can say puzzles, sitting arrangement, so on, isn't it? And these are the chapters from analytical reasoning. And from critical reasoning, the portions where those 5 to 6 sections which we have discussed earlier. That means these chapters together construct the critical reasoning part. Okay. So this distinction should be clear. Now, come to our next topic. That these are the chapters from the critical reasoning part: statement and argument, statement and assumption, statement and conclusion, statement and course of action, cause and effects, and you can say inference and decision making also. Statement and inference and decision making. You can add that. Okay. So this roughly completes the critical reasoning part. The critical reasoning part for CLAT exams. Okay. Now, if you have seen the papers of 2020 and 2021, you will actually see that the passages on which these questions were based were actually taken from an article, in the newspaper on our web. Okay. So that becomes imperative that you should study newspaper, you should develop a habit, of reading articles. You should develop a habit of reading articles and newspapers. Okay. This must be your first part. This must be your first goal that you must achieve. Okay. Before starting any preparation. So say, for example, if you have 6 months in hand, starting from say today, 5 to 6 months which you have in hand, you should start studying those newspapers. Okay, they are freely available now. Most of the newspapers you can get from our website, or you can get from many telegram channels. And the main articles which are appearing in those newspapers, especially the editorial part, this you should develop a habit of reading. Okay. Now, now Now let us understand term by term what each term actually means. Okay, that they look quite similar, isn't it? Argument, assumption, conclusion. Okay, somewhat they are all similar, but let us try to understand these terms one by one. Because if you understand these terms, you will not make those silly mistakes which rest of the candidate are making in the exam. Okay, see, argument. Argument is basically a set of statements. Argument is basically a set of statements out of which one is conclusion. Another can be facts, and third can be assumptions. Assumptions and the fact that support those conclusions. Okay. So argument, if you see if this is the set of argument, you can clearly depict from here that it is a set of statements out of which one is conclusion, out of which one is conclusion, others are, they are another facts, you can say, another facts, and some assumptions, and the facts supporting the conclusion. So actually, conclusion is a conclusion is a narrow conclusion is a narrow thing, whereas arguments can be many. It can be strong, it can be weak, it can be supportive to conclusion, it can be contradictory to conclusion. Okay, it may or may not have any direct relevance to the conclusion. So that is a totally different thing. Okay. So what are arguments? Arguments are basically a set of given statements, out of which one is conclusion. Other statements may support conclusion, may not support conclusion, may be general facts, which may be true or may not be true. That is a different. Okay. Now, if we want to strengthen or weaken the argument, what we have to do, we have to support or go against the unstated assumption related to the question given. Okay, we have to go through the we have to support or go against the unstated assumption related to the question given. Okay, so suppose for example a statement is given that the sun rises in the east. The sun rises in the east, and two arguments are given. That earth rotates from west to east in its axis. Earth rotates from west to east in the axis, and second statement is given that the sun let us say statement was the sun rises in the east. Okay, and if the second statement is given that the sun sets in the west, and if they now ask which of the following statement actually strengthen the argument given in the statement, which of the following statement, either statement 1 or statement 2, actually strengthen the argument which is given in the statement. So what should be the answer? See, the sun rises in the east. It is a fact which is given. Okay, now we know that earth rotates from west to east in its own axis, inclined at an angle of 23.5 degrees with the vertical. And we also know that the sun sets in the west. We both know, to our what you can say common perception, or whatever we have studied from our school knowledge, we know that the both statements are true. And here is the tricky part. It may seem that both the statement will support will support or actually will strengthen the argument. Okay, but your answer will not be both statement. Your answer will be statement one only. Okay, why should be statement one? Because in question statement, the statement is given as the sun rises in the east. The statement has not talked anything about where the sun sets. Okay, the statement has not talked anything about where the sun sets. The sun rises in the east, and what are the supportive statements that will actually strengthen the argument that earth rotates on its axis from west to east, and therefore the sun always rises on the east, and therefore sun always rises in the east. Okay, now the sun sets in west. Okay, this may or may not be relevant to us, because we are not talking about setting sun, we are talking about the rising sun. Okay, so answer in this case should be statement one only. Okay, so this example is given to make you understand that argument and conclusions are two different things. Okay, argument is more a broader part, and conclusion is somewhat smaller part, or somewhat concise part. Okay, now come to other words which quite frequently is asked in this critical reasoning questions. The next word is conclusion. What is the conclusion of an argument? Conclusion is basically the main point of the argument, and this is based on facts. And this is based on facts. Say for a very simple example. Say I'm taking a very simple example. Okay. Let's consider a life. Let's consider a real life example. So you live in your house. Okay. Your house will have some neighborhood. There will be some uncles, some people you know. Okay. And suppose there is a marriage. There's a marriage in your neighborhood. Okay. There's a marriage in your neighborhood. Say you live in house A, there is marriage in house B. And the house B has good relation with house A. Okay. They means you and your father, mother, your other family members, they go there. They also come here. Okay. You also talk to them. Everything is good. A and B, they are well known to each other. Okay, everything goes good. And you live in house A, and there is a marriage in house B. Okay. You heard about that marriage, but not from them. You heard about that marriage and not from them. And everyone in the neighborhood, everyone in your neighborhood, say there are 20 houses in your neighborhood, everyone in your neighborhood is invited except you. Okay. Everyone in your neighborhood is invited except you. What should you do? Should you go to the marriage or should you avoid going to the marriage? Okay. What will be the answer? That 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 you will go to the marriage or you will avoid going to the marriage? एकदम सीधा सा क्वेश्चन मैंने पूछा है. तुम किसी घर में रहते हो, तुम्हारे पड़ोस में ही एक घर है जिनका तुम्हारे घर के साथ अच्छा रिलेशन है, सब कुछ बातचीत सब कुछ होता है, हर फंक्शन में तुम लोग जाते हो, वो लोग भी हर एक फंक्शन में तुम्हारे यहाँ आते हैं. ठीक है. अब तुम्हें पता चला कि भाई सामने वाले घर में शादी है, 1 महीने बाद शादी है. उनसे पता नहीं चला, बाकी सबसे पता चला कि हाँ सामने वाले घर में शादी है. ठीक है. उस तुम्हारे नेबरहुड का, तुम्हारे रीजन का, तुम्हारे नेबरहुड का, तुम्हारे पड़ोस का हर एक घर इनवाइटेड है एक्सेप्ट यू, एक्सेप्ट तुम्हारा घर. ठीक. अब तुम्हें लगा कि हो सकता है सब इनवाइट करना भूल गए होंगे, बाद में इनवाइट करेंगे, लेकिन 1 महीना हो गया, 1 महीना बीत चुका, अब शादी का दिन है, आज शादी का दिन है. तुम देख रहे हो कि सब लोग सज धज के शादी में जा रहे हैं. व्हाट विल यू डू? जाओगे शादी में या नहीं जाओगे? कंक्लूजन क्या दोगे? आंसर क्या दोगे? ठीक है. तो देखो, बहुत लोग बोलेंगे कि नहीं जाना चाहिए, जब आप इनवाइटेड नहीं है तो आपको नहीं जाना चाहिए. एथिकली करेक्ट है, एथिकली इज द करेक्ट आंसर. बट अगर लॉजिकली सोचें तो आंसर विल बी कि आप जा भी सकते हो, आप नहीं भी जा सकते हो. ठीक है. आप जा भी सकते हो, आप नहीं भी जा सकते हो. कैसे? सपोज आप शादी में गए, सपोज आप शादी में गए. ठीक है. या सपोज पहला केस मानते हैं कि आप शादी में नहीं गए, आप शादी में नहीं गए, लेकिन आपके आस पड़ोस के हर हर कोई शादी में है, आपके आस पड़ोस का हर कोई शादी में है. तो इसका मतलब क्या, आप नहीं गए, क्या आपको मना किया गया था शादी में जाने के लिए? नहीं. नहीं. ठीक है. आपको तो मना नहीं किया गया था शादी में जाने के लिए. सपोज एवरीवन, शादी हो रही है, एवरीवन इज देयर एक्सेप्ट यू, एक्सेप्ट योर फैमिली. सो वेयर यू फॉरबिडन, वेयर यू आस्क दैट यू शुड नॉट कम टू आवर मैरिज? नो. नो. ठीक है. ये तुमसे नहीं कहा गया था कि आप शादी में मत आओ, तो आप जा भी सकते हैं. ठीक है. सपोज आप चले गए और गेट में पूछ लिया कि भाई आप, नमस्कार, आप यहाँ कैसे, आपको तो इनवाइट हमने किया नहीं था. तो तुम्हारा आंसर क्या होगा? आपने मना भी तो नहीं किया था, है ना? सो सो द गेम इज बिटवीन दीज टू, द गेम इज बिटवीन दीज टू स्टेटमेंट्स. ओके. what should follow, what should not follow? The correct conclusion should be आप जा भी सकते हो, आप नहीं भी जा सकते. Until and unless some extra information is given, we cannot conclude here. Okay. And this is very precise, and this is precisely the thing which you should keep in mind, especially this question. Okay. Next is facts or premises. Now a premise or a fact is a stated evidence that supports the conclusion, that actually supports the conclusion. Okay, what is assumption? Assumption is an unstated or hidden fact which supports the conclusion, which actually supports the conclusion. And what is inference? Inference is something which we get or interpret from the given statement. Okay. So these are the main things, these are the main distinctions which you should keep in mind before you start before you start solving anything related to para-based questions or critical reasoning questions. Okay. Now, what are the type of critical reasoning questions that you can expect in CLAT 2022? Okay. Now, see, there will be comprehension-based passages. There will be comprehension-based passages followed by 4 to 5 questions on each passage. Okay. And and these are the type of critical reasoning questions that you can expect that might appear in the upcoming exam. Okay, so what are the types? Say weaken the argument, strengthen the argument, supply the assumption, supply the conclusion, structure of the argument, the flaw in the argument, paradox questions, or evaluate the conclusion. Okay, many of these have actually surfaced on 2021 paper of CLAT examination, and it is expected that this type of questions or this type of framework actually will be visible in your current exam too. Okay, so you should not panic. You should think clearly. Okay, before answering any question you should think clearly. We'll definitely discuss the methods in our class, that how to identify a given statement is a strong supportive statement or a weak supportive statement. In the same ways, we'll show you the how to find the correct answer by limiting options. Okay. now now if we discuss about how to handle these critical reasoning questions, then we will discuss this in 4 points. These 4 points you should keep in mind, and then you'll avoid making 90% of the mistakes which you were previously making. Okay. What are these 4 points? Break the passage into different parts. Okay, the passage will be quite long. Divide into 2 to 3 break it, maybe in 3 paragraph or 6 paragraph, and focus on part wise. On first reading. The reading should not be very fast. Okay, but it must be, even quite, it must be quite deep. Means one time you should read, and it may happen that you need a second reading, but after one reading the structure should be clear in your mind that where what is written. Okay. Okay, there is no point making reading a passage twice or thrice the same passage with a very with a very high speed. In fact, reading it with a slow and steady speed is good. It's pretty well do if you read it only one time and you understand almost 50 to 60% of the passage. That is fairly good. No problem. Okay. And if you face difficulty in doing that, break the passage into different parts and try to remember which part deals with which topic. Okay. Now, always beware of answer choices. Always be aware of answer choices which are contradictory to the main idea given in the question. Okay. Suppose a question is given that out of which of the following statements, suppose 3 statements are given, out of which of the following statement a particular given statement, the argument of the particular given statement weakens. The argument of the particular given statement weakens. Okay. Now, it is from our habit, it is from our experience, we see that if they are asking a question from weaken the argument, they will definitely give one or two. They will definitely give one or two statements or one or two options which will actually strengthen the argument. Okay, which will actually strengthen the argument. You have to find the statement which is weakening the argument, not strengthening the argument. So these type of answer choices should be avoided, and they are very easy. And there's a very easy technique to just eliminate them by just reading the passage once. Now, sometimes it is said that the passage given is actually in a very complicated scenario, in a very, you can say, high level words. Okay, meaning of meaning of let's say more than 10% of the words are new to you. So that is not a major issue. Okay, you can still make up what is written. You all come from good school. Okay, you can still make out from what is written, and if you want you can try to rephrase them in a simple words with pen and paper, only in your mind, that what exactly is written. Okay, and now always and always try to understand what is being asked. Check and double check. Check and double check before entering an option answer. Check and double check that what exactly is being asked. Okay, so these are the main strategies. These are the main we can say hookup that you should keep in mind before attempting CR questions for your CLAT. Okay, this is Atnakar sir, your mentor for CLAT reasoning and quantitative aptitude, and definitely we will bring now some classes in which we'll take some questions and in detail we will see that how those things which we have discussed in today's class actually help to arrive at answer at a much faster rate. Okay, this today's our class. This completes our class for today. Thank you so much.